Okay, so this video is going to show you how to email yourself a CSV file about a particular flight. Yesterday we took a Mavic 3 Pro out to an RC field and did some testing. The remote ID receiver we used was our portable unit, the BV Loss unit with a GPS antenna on it. And what you're looking at right now is that flight. So what we'll do is we will click on one of the data points to bring up the expanded view of details about that particular data point. The next thing we do is you see a green button called Email Flight Info. We're going to tap that. It will then email us the report. We'll open up the report in email, and here's what we get. So we received the email, and I clicked on the email link to the CSV file that automatically opened up numbers, and so here's the data. Just an FYI, I have X'd out certain things in the report, specifically the serial numbers and the remote IDs. There's no need to advertise those on the internet. What I'll do now is I will explain every column that's in the database. I think most of them are pretty self-explanatory, but if they're not, I'll try to explain them. First column is the Century serial number. Next column is the remote ID of the pilot, followed by the remote ID of the drone. In most cases, these will be identical. There are a couple of the remote modules that you can Velcro on your drone where you can actually change what the remote ID is. And the way they do it is not following the FAA requirements, so technically they're violating the law and those units are not legal, but they do it anyway. They don't care. I've notified them and they have no interest in fixing their firmware. The next two fields are the pilot latitude and longitude, followed by the latitude and longitude of the drone, followed by the latitude and longitude of the Century. More and more of our Centuries are being shipped with built-in GPS chips, so they always know where they're at. You also have the ability to set the Century latitude and longitude via the iOS app or through our web interfaces. So this is where the Century thinks it's at. Here is the mean sea level of the drone that's reported by the drone. This is in feet. We were in the Denver area, which is close to a mile high above sea level. That's why these numbers are so high. The next field is the AGL above where the drone took off. And the topology of the ground may change, so this may not be 100% accurate of where the AGL of the drone is, because if the drone is flying over an area that has increased in elevation and it says 400 feet, the actual AGL might be 300 feet. So the only way to find out for sure would be to look at the mean sea level value and the latitude and longitude of the drone and use Google Earth to figure out the difference. Next one is speed of the drone at the time in miles per hour, followed by the heading. If the drone is not moving, then the heading will be 361. The next one is the distance between the pilot and the drone. So you can use this to figure out, if you think the drone was flying within visual line of sight. The next column is the operation mode that the Century was in, either normal, drone avoidance, or perimeter. More and more people are just using normal. If they are in perimeter mode, then this is the perimeter name associated with it. Next field is the distance in feet to either the perimeter center or the where the Century thinks it's at. The next value is the alert level that the sentry is in. There are 4 levels of alert, 0 through 4. Level 3 is the highest alert level. That's when you're within the defined radius of the geofence. In our example, I think the geofence was about 1,200. So if you're within 1,200 feet of the location of the sentry, you'd be at a level 3. So you can see that's what we are. If you're a little bit outside the geofence, you go to a level 2. Like here we are, 1692 or 1482. If you go a little further out, you're at a level 1, which is 1945, for example, or 2113. And if you're way out, then you're 2555. The sentry will not generate any email or text alerts for a level 0 alert level. The next field is make and model. Both the receivers and the cloud for the UAS Sentry has logic to decode the remote ID to figure out the make and model. New drones are being added every day to the database list within the FAA, so there's no way that we're going to be 100% accurate, but we try to hit the heavy hitters, the more popular drones. If we cannot decode the remote ID, it just says unknown, and there's a link displayed at the bottom of the page, which is an FAA URL where you can enter the remote ID, and it should tell you the make and model. But the FAA database that's on the web is not always accurate either. Next field is the date and time that the data was actually sent to the UAS Sentry cloud. The next field is the remote ID timestamp that was generated by the GPS chip on the drone. This helps get you even a further granularity on, when the data was detected. The next one is the timestamp accuracy flag. I believe 10 means it's within 10 milliseconds. Next field is the date and time that the sentry thinks it is. There are several algorithms used for the sentry to figure out what date and time it is. I won't go into that now. If the sentry has a GPS chip on it, it will show you the date and time that the chip is providing us. The next one is the signal strength, called RSSI. The further away from 0, the weaker the signal. RSSI is always provided in negative numbers. A negative 51 is stronger than a negative 55. So in general, as the distance between the receiver and the drone increases, the smaller the number will get. And so negative 55 is smaller than negative 51. So you can see down here, negative 91, that's a relatively weak signal. The drone was out, 3/4 of a mile or so, 3,500 feet. Next field, the remote ID channel that the data was received on. The vast majority of drones transmit on the 2.4 gigahertz frequency and channel 6. There is one drone manufacturer, Skydio, that transmits on 5.8. Don't know why they do that. 5.8 doesn't have near the range that 2.4 does. So Skydio drones will not be picked up near as far as drones that are transmitting on 2.4. Seems odd that Skydio would do that, but that's what they do. Next field is the Sentry processor number. Some of our receivers have more than one processor. This will enable the receiver to pick up more frequencies faster. The PV loss unit that we were using has one processor, so the processor number is always 0. for the handheld units. The next field says RID from Century Cache. If for some reason that the Century could not upload the data to the cloud, it will save it in cache and upload it later when connectivity to the cloud is restored. If this value is 1, that means the data was pulled from the internal memory of the Century and was not uploaded exactly when the data packet arrived. And finally, the Century assigned flight ID is shown. The Century has logic to look at the data points coming in from a drone, and based on the timing, it will assign a set of data points to a unique flight ID, which will allow you to get reports like this. And all the X's are the remote ID of the drone. The remote ID is embedded in the flight ID signature. So that is it for going through what is sent to you when you request the CSV. Not all users can get the CSV. You have to have permissions to do that. Right now, I know the main use of this is by prosecutors who are prosecuting people accused of dropping bad things over prisons. So this gives the prosecutors some additional information on where the drone took off and if there were any other laws being violated, for example, flying at 1,000 feet or so, and things like that. So I hope you found this interesting, and that's it for now. Thank you.